You know what? I absolutely love coconut water. It's one of my favorite things to drink out there in the world. Sure, it might not be the healthiest thing because of all the sugar, but it's nice. It's nice, it's relaxing, it's fresh, and the only thing I love as much as coconut water are big, strong, fantastic villains. And that is what this chapter provided. Welcome in, you guys. We got One Piece chapter 1146, the post-game show, where we go through the comment section of the review video and see what everybody is talking about. What is the hot goss? What are people theorizing about? What are the thoughts coming off of this latest chapter of One Piece? I just gotta know. But without further ado, please let me know real quick, what's your favorite drink? Do you like White Monster? Are you a Red Bull person? Do you like Bang Energy? Or are you like me and do you just simply enjoy coconut water? Okay, so without further ado, that's so embarrassing. Usually, like during those transitions, I slide over. Watch. I usually just do one swift motion, but I'm on carpet, so I can't exactly slide my chair, but I try my best. Let's do that one more time. Okay, I didn't even move that time. What the hell am I doing? Okay, sorry. I'm like OCD, kind of. So I really want to get this right. There we go. It's not going to get any better than that. So, first comment and the top comment we have right here. And it says, Brooke, knowing what the God Knights are is kind of crazy. I know he's been around for a while, but it's still surprising. Robin and Brooke probably know a lot more that hasn't been said yet. Yes, and I'm a little bit upset that we don't know what their past is like. I'm a little bit upset we don't know everything about them, which might sound weird, but hear me out, right? The minute Brooke says, if I was on the crew and Brooke was like, oh yeah, like she's a part of the God Knights, she has to be one of them, I would look at Brooke and I'd be like, yo, we need to talk after this arc, man. Like, let me know your backstory. What were you all about? What kingdom did you reside in? How do you know about these guys? I would be drilling him with questions. And the same goes for Robin. And the thing is that we know, I always rant about this every time I get reminded of Robin withholding information, but lest we forget that when we got to Wano, post-Wano, Robin was like, oh yeah, by the way, I read the Alabasta poneglyph and it said that Pluton is here. And it's like, okay, Robin, you just didn't tell us this entire time? What do you mean? We're part of the crew. We had 900 chapters together. You didn't tell us this? And I get it, right? You know, that's just me breaking the fourth wall. But in reality, Oda probably just didn't decide what he wanted that poneglyph to say quite yet. And that's totally fine. You know, I'm not going to like judge it too hard. But back to the brass tacks, I do hope we get legitimate Brooke backstory out of this. Like, hey, Brooke, so how do you know about these guys? Like, did you hear it in passing? Or did you actually meet the God Knights 90 years ago? Because Brooke is old, right? But before even the Rumbar Pirates and Brooke was over here playing the violin for Laboon, Brooke had a whole ass life before that. So yeah, I am curious. You know, where did Brooke live? What was he all about? How does he know these guys? Those are questions I really hope we get the answer to. You know, if not in the story, maybe an SBS. I know that's blasphemous, but I'd rather take an SBS than nothing. On to the next comment. Second comment, they say, Enel's name was dropped in this chapter. Thank you, Usopp, for telling us that Oda hasn't forgotten about my glorious king. That's crazy. Glorious king, huh? The guy who wanted to murder everybody in the sky? That glorious king? The glorious king that captured people and held them as slaves to build his Arc Maxim? That king? No, I agree. I love Enel. I've talked about it, but I love his devil fruit, man. The devil fruit, the random, I don't even know what to call it. I know it's like a Japanese thing, but like the piercing on his back with the little drums up top. Like, I don't know what the hell is going on with that. But I do love Enel, and this does confirm that Oda has not forgotten him, and hopefully he makes an appearance in the future. And I want to pass the question on to you guys. If Enel were to come back, not if, but when Enel comes back, what arc do you want him to show up in? The Final War, like Luffy versus Emu? Do you want him to show up here in Elbaph? Maybe Laugh Tale? Or would you rather have him be like this weird spin-off OVA? Because I could see that too. I could totally see Enel getting a movie just for himself, kind of like Broly. Yeah, that's a weird comparison, but like Broly's second coming, right? Oh, we beat Broly in the past, but here he is in a crater. He came back to Earth and he's just running amok. Maybe we get something like that. But hopefully whenever he does make his appearance, it is canon. You know, hopefully that's not the case. And I would say that if he were to make a comeback, I think it would be when all the ancient weapons are revealed. I think that's what I'd prefer. Because Enel, I love that Usopp brought it up and he compared them to the celestial dragons. Because lest we forget, I guess that's like the phrase of the day, but lest we forget, when Enel used his attack to destroy Upper Yard, it looked very much like when that mysterious weapon in the sky, possibly Uranus, destroyed Leloucia. Those attacks looked very similar. And hey, they both came from things in the sky. For Enel, it came from the Arc Maxim, and then from Emu, it came from, like I said, that Uranus sky thingamabob. I always say sky thingamabob as well as Uranus because we don't know exactly what it is yet. The main guess is that it is Uranus, but until we get that confirmed like 100%, I always have to throw that, like, you know, caveat in there. So now, on to the next comment. They say, when Brooke took the hit for Nami, Gunko paused her little monologue and was just staring at the Straw Hats. I think she was sad that she never had love like that before for a split second. In her deep heart of hearts. I love that. I thought you were going to go with, oh, she's sad because she hit her idol. But no, she's just sad because she's never been in love before or had friends. But I don't know if that's even true necessarily. I know it's not love, but Gungko did blush towards Sommers, and it seems like they were kind of friendly. So I do want to see how she interacts with the other God Knights. Maybe she is in love. You know, maybe Gungko is a cold-hearted witch here in Elbaph. Maybe Gunko is somebody who does not care about the lives of humans and insects, but when it comes to her fellow celestial dragons, maybe she's different, right? Maybe she is a little bit different up there with the boys. So now, on to the next comment. They say, I think Olia and Clover were in the picture because they influenced Vegapunk to eventually broadcast the truth to the world. We need to remember that Vegapunk was against researching until Clover died, if I remember correctly. Yeah, I think that's correct. Hey, we forget, you know, we're humans, and that sounds right, so I'm gonna go with it, you know, so yeah, I agree. I think another thing with the influence of Clover and Olia that could still be seen today would be with the books of Ohara, right? Because they survived, you know, Olia and Clover threw their lives down, as well as all the other scholars, to save those books. And here they are. You know, Robin is reading them. Saul's been reading them. The Giants of Elbaph, if they can read, they've been reading them as well. And I would even go a step further. And this is my theory right now, but I think those books red-pilled King Harold. I know. It sounds a little bit weird, but hear me out. In this chapter, and even in the chapter where we heard about Shamrock maybe visiting King Harold's grave, that painted a really bad picture of Harold in my mind. I was like, okay, maybe Harold was a villain, you know, and then we have to remember that Mother Carmel was doing her operations on the island. Harold didn't look good on paper, in my opinion. And then we got the picture of him and he looked really mean, and I was like, okay, it's sold, right? But in this chapter, we see that Sommers realize that Harold kind of screwed the pooch. You know, he's over here making giants learn and read, and he's making them peaceful, which wasn't exactly the plan that Sommers and Harold had in mind. Something went wrong 20 years ago, because 20 years ago is when the school of Elbaph opened up. And here's the thing, 20 years ago, that is when the books of Ohara showed up on Elbaph. I could be getting the timeline a little bit mixed up, but I think that is correct. You know, without going and, you know, cheating and looking at the answer, I'm pretty sure the timeline matches up. So maybe King Harold was all about helping the world government. Maybe he hated the world. Maybe he wanted to become a mercenary force for the WG. Maybe he was best friends with the God Knights. And then the book showed up. Saul came over, the books of Ohara came over with him, and King Harold read. He learned that maybe the world was ending. Maybe he learned that 900 years ago, the WG weren't the best of people. And that right there could have been his red pill moment that made him want to build schools. Maybe that is what made him want to go a different path with the Giants of Elbaph. That is my theory, because right now, it really does seem like Harold was playing at every side. So that's just my conclusion for now, until we get more information. But yeah, I would like to hear what you guys have to say about that. How do you feel about Clover and Olia, King Harold, and the books of Ohara? All right, this comment says, my current headcanon based off of this chapter, the WG were planning to end the world, decided to subdue giants and use them as their mercenaries. Holy Knights they jump Harold, showed off their power, and told him to open the country. Seeing how strong the Holy Knights are, Harold realized that he had to comply, and Elbaph is cooked either way, so he takes it a step further by pacifying the giants, so they wouldn't be helpful to the world government. Harold Loki, Jarl, and the royal guards organized a conspiracy to make it seem like Loki killed King Harold. Loki brings skeletons from the underworld and drops them in the castle. Okay. The king's gone. Loki can't inherit the throne because of what he did. If there's no king, there's nobody the giants could take orders from. So the WG can't control them. Everyone is alive, chilling in the heaven realm, waiting for Nika. Okay. I like this. I like that you provided an answer for the heaven realm, because that place is a complete mystery. I mean, the God Knights haven't mentioned it. None of the giants have mentioned it. None of the Straw Hats have mentioned it. It is a black box right now. We don't know what the hell's inside of it. So I like that you said, oh, like, you know, quote, dead people are up there waiting to be revealed. I think that's a pretty fun answer. And I do think it would be cool if Harold was alive. Like, that right there would be a nuts revelation. Kind of like Raizo is alive, right? Back in Zo. Yeah, I don't mind it. I think this is a pretty solid theory. I will say this, though, and that is the fact, I mean, this is like a tidbit. I'm just kind of ripping it for no reason. But as far as opening the country of Elbaph, I think that falls in line with what the world government did not want King Harold to do. Because when Ange was listing off everything King Harold did when we first got here, she said, yeah, you know, he got the library, he got the schools up, and he wanted to open up the country of Elbaph. And that seems like a good thing, right? It seems like opening up countries is generally not what the world government wants from a country under their jurisdiction. Kind of like Fishman Island, kind of like Wano even. Opening the country is a big no-no. So I don't even think that the Holy Knights know about that. But yeah, I think this all kind of falls in line with maybe even the conspiracy theory, which is kind of wild, right? Because if this is a conspiracy theory, which I think it is, by the way, I think this is a pretty solid theory, but that means that the world government for the past 20 years has not visited Elbaph. They didn't once come to check up on if King Harold is holding good to his promises. You know, they never once stopped by and were like, hey, Harold, what's with that school, man? I thought we were training warriors. Why'd you open up a school 20 years ago? Like, they never asked him any of that. That must mean that they trusted Harold to get the job done. And instead, he did not. He did not. This comment says, Bonnie should be a Robin level safety priority since she can control the entire Pacifista army. Yeah, that is true. You know, with Bonnie, I talked about this back on Egghead, but it would be cool if Bonnie went around island to island looking for Pacifista that the Marines have, and she just subjugates them. Like, it's like a Pokemon hunt, right? Where you're trying to collect all the Pokemon for the Pokédex. Imagine she does that, but for her father. Yeah, I think that'd be pretty broken. She'd have her own crew. She would get stronger and stronger with every island. Kind of like Jinwoo obtaining the Shadow Army. That would be Bonnie, but with her dad. And as far as her being a priority, protection, I agree. You know, if it was up to me, I wouldn't let Bonnie get anywhere near the Holy Knights or any battlefield. But Bonnie's strong, man. Like, do we treat her like a kid? I don't think so. Like, she can go gear 5th for like a split second. You know, she did make a name for herself. She does have a pretty crazy bounty. But yeah, hopefully she does utilize this power later. I think in the final war, this will be cracked. Just the fact that she can control the Pacifista. I mean, damn. If I was a part of the Marines or the world government, I'd be like, hey guys, until Bonnie is dead, how about we don't bring Pacifista to the war? Because I could already imagine a scenario, kind of like Marineford, where they whip out the Pacifista and they're just dominating the battlefield left and right, you know, flanking them from behind. And then Bonnie just says, hey dad, stop it. You know, like, that would be a major L for the world government if they ever do that. You know, until you kill Bonnie, do not bring out the Pacifista. You know, put them on ice, please. Please, brother. Or change the command chips. Surely there's some scientists out there that can do that, right? Just change the command chip. Erase Bonnie from that list. I don't know. Like, right now, I don't think the Marines have anybody. Like, they lost Vegapunk, and that was their #1 guy. I guess there's Garling, but that seems weird, right? At least for Saturn, he was the head of scientific defense. So maybe if he was still around, he could do it. But even that feels odd. And now that Garling took over as the head of scientific defense, is he even scientific? Does he know how pacifistas work? Could he build one? I don't know. You know, is the title for show, or is Garling really the science guy we just never knew? You know, low be it for me to judge a book by its cover, but when I see Garling, I do not imagine him being the godhead of scientific defense. No, he's just a straight killer, man. Gunko, no diffing 5 Straw Hats, including Jimbei, was wild. The God Knights really are no joke. Actually, addendum, 4 Straw Hats plus Colin. I like that. I like the edit. I do that all the time. Sometimes I make mistakes when I say things and it's like, okay, I need to edit this comment, man. So yes, Gunko did no diff the Straw Hats. And I do see why people kind of reel this back a little bit too. Because while she did beat the Straw Hats, she didn't beat them, right? She simply knocked them off the ship. But even then, that is still very, very impressive. None of the Straw Hats were able to land a blow on Gunko. Of course, Usopp did, but Gunko saw it coming, right? Like, Usopp shot, Gunko did this. Like, we zoomed into her face and she did not move. You know, she took that blow like a champ. She did not flinch whatsoever. She regenerated. She simply did it because she could. And we have to remember, she did all of this while talking. She did all of this while dropping lore. Nobody asked her about the war that will engulf the world. Nobody asked her about the giants joining her side. Like, she just kept on yapping, dude. And that's nuts. You know, that is pretty nuts. And I am curious, bro, if this is what she can do now, what will she be able to do when she starts displaying hockey, when she starts displaying an awakening or more magical abilities like the regeneration and the abyss circle? Like, what if she has more powers like that? Gunko's nuts. And like I said, this is only the first God Knight we have seen in action. Of course, there's Killingham and Sommers in this chapter, but those are both off-screened, so we barely got anything from them. But for Gunko here, man, if this is what someone without the Saint title can do, oh, no! You know what I mean? Like, that's crazy. And it's absolutely crazy. Like, there's still, what is it, like 5 or 6 God Knights we have not met yet. And at a moment's notice, you know, if the God Knights ever start losing on this island badly, Gunko could summon them. You know, I always gotta say that, but Gunko could legitimately summon the rest of the God Knights here. She summoned Killingham and Sommers, and they weren't ready. They were not ready to teleport. Sommers was in his damn underwear, and Killingham didn't know where to go. You know, like, and Gunko brought their asses over here. So if Gunko is ever on the verge of death, if we're ever about to beat her, Summoning Circle, the God Knights are back. You know, Summoning Circle, Shamrock. Like, it's an ace in the hole. So that's also crazy to think about, and that is one of the main reasons why I don't think the Straw Hats are necessarily going to win on this island. I think we'll win in the terms of, like, we'll look good, but I think as far as the kids go, I think they'll be successful. I think Gunko, Sommers, and Killingham will actually kidnap them. I just can't see a scenario where they lose. I think that's the hard part. And then, of course, with the regeneration, like, we don't know how to get around that yet. Like, is the answer simply hockey? Is it something we don't know yet? Your guess is as good as mine, brother. Your guess is as good as mine. I know that was like a big tangent, but I thought we might as well tackle the Gunko topic right here. Jimbes Power is to make people he's fighting reveal. Okay, this is pretty funny. Wait, that's actually so funny, dude. Yeah, the exposition know me. Okay. I made the connection that when Jimbei was fighting Who's Who did nothing but yap. I swear to God. Go back to the Jimbei fight. Who's Who was spilling lore about Shanks, about the Gumu Gumu no Mi, about his time before Kaido's crew, about how, you know, he believed in Sun God Nika, and he was a slave of Marie's Raw. Like, nobody asked. Who's who? What are you doing here, man? And yeah, maybe it is Jimbei. You know, maybe there's something about Jimbei's wise old fishman age that just makes people want to talk to him. And to be fair, hey, if I had to pick a Straw Hat to grab a drink with, I do think I'd pick Jimbei. I think out of everybody, I would pick Jimbei. And I'm a drinker too. So, you know, like Luffy, probably not. Zoro and Sanji, maybe. I like Zoro and Sanji a lot. Nami, no. Robin, no. Chopper, no. Brooke wouldn't be bad, but I don't like his music, so maybe not Brooke. Frankie, that's not a bad pick. But, you know, like I said, I think out of all the Straw Hats, I think I'd want to grab a beer with Jimbei if he were real. You know, obviously I'm not going to, like, you know, print out a cardboard cutout of Jimbei and drink with them. But I want to pass the question to you guys now. If you had to pick a Straw Hat to drink with just a single day at the bar, who would you go with? I think Jimbei's mine. This one says, Zeus turning into a shark to attack Gunko might play into the fact that shark sounds similar to shock. Shark, shock. Shark, shock. I could see that. And I guess it kind of depends. I wonder, like, when we get to this part in the anime, will the Japanese voice actor for Nami say shock or shark? Because if so, then this would be even more so true. If this is just the taste of the God Knights, imagine how strong Shamrock is. Yeah. Imagine how strong Shamrock is. But I don't want to be that guy. but I want to see the older generation of God Knights, right? Give me Garlic. If that's how strong Gunko is, imagine Garling, the Supreme Commander, a guy who was at God Valley. He saw Roger, he saw Roxy Zebek, like he was there. And not just him, but all the other God Knights that were alongside with him 38 years ago. I want to see how they're doing. And I do wonder, right? So with the God Knights right now, from the dragon silhouette flashback image he gave us back in like chapter 1078, around there, we saw 9 God Knights. But imagine if we get another 9 or 10 and it's the old generation. The old generation God Knights plus the young generation. Ooh, that'd be spicy. And I do want to pass the question on to you guys. I say that a lot, but what do you guys think about that? Do you think we will see the older generation of God Knights alongside Garling? Or no, do you think they're all dead and gone? Which would be a little bit weird, right? Like, oh, you know, all the God Knights from 38 years ago, they just freaking died off screen, you know? I would be okay if like half of them died. Like maybe some died on God Valley, maybe some died due to old age. But I'd like to imagine at least 3 or 4 of them are still around. Like maybe we'll see Gunko's dad, maybe Killingham's dad, Sommer's dad, or like Shamrock's uncle. Like, you know, like we could really expand the villain roster if Oda wanted to. I find it hilarious that Usopp is so used to his projectiles not working, he casually threw a nuke at Gunko's face, expecting it to fail. Yeah, you're right. Dude, I get why Usopp was shocked. Because if you go back to Onigashima, hey, I don't know if you guys remember, but Usopp threw the kitten caboodle at page 1. Every attack in Usopp's arsenal, the pine cones, the Rafflesia, you know, the smoke bombs, the skull bomb, Tabasco even, like nothing worked on page 1. Sure, there were some things that page 1 was like, ooh, you know, but page 1 literally tanked everything. Usopp did maybe like 5% damage to page 1. So I get it. You know, I get why Usopp is shocked. And I'm curious, like after we get through Gunko's regeneration powers, once we nullify the Gorosei and the God Knight's regeneration powers, how durable are they going to be? You know, like, will they start activating like Tekkai, or, you know, whenever they tank this blow, they don't get any damage at all anyways? Like, I wonder how that's going to work, because it's kind of like Saturn. Well, Saturn is different. Saturn, when he got knocked through buildings, he was still bleeding, right? Saturn was still bleeding despite everything, but he did just regenerate his whole body afterwards. But for Gunko, there was no blood, there was no, ooh, you know, there was no, fizzle. No, none of that. So, base level, Gunko looks pretty good tanking that. This one says that thorny club wielded by Saint Summers and the deflection attacks from Gunko was cool to witness. Yeah, I'm loving what Oda's doing with them. I love how he's utilizing 2 Paramecias in a really cool way. You know, I wasn't one of those people who had mythical Zoan or Zoan fatigue, but now that we got Paramecias running the game, I really enjoy it. You know, I really like that change of pace. Of course, Killingham is a mythical Zoan, so he doesn't exactly fit in here, but even with his mythical Zoan, it's really cool. You know, it's got that unique ability to bring out dreams and make people go to sleep. So, hey, I kind of consider it like a special Paramecia in a weird way. You know, it just has the dragon tacked along, but yeah, I think the powers all around are pretty freaking unique and cool. This one says, Gunko, nothing you do will stop me from causing the end of times. Brooke, how about I play New World? Gunko yells Soul King. Yeah, I mean, would that be a weakness? I wonder. Like, if Brooke in this chapter, instead of using his Gavant attack with his cane sword, if Brooke whipped out a guitar and played music, would that actually have an effect on her? I don't know. I think that's a really tough question. I wish we just knew what was going through Gunko's head. Like, does she not recognize him? Does she not care? And even then, like, if she did care and she just still wanted to get the job done, I'm surprised she didn't want to make Brooke a slave. You know, Celestial Dragons, they're slavers through and through. If they want someone, they take them. Like back in, what was it? Saboti, right? Back in Saboti, there was one pirate captain who was being sold at the auction house, and one of the things they listed was that he can play music. And they were like, oh, he can play music? 16 million berries. Like, they wanted him. Soul King Brooke. I'm surprised Gunko did not want to kidnap him, because just imagine how cool it would be. Like I said, I wouldn't want Brooke. But if I was a Brooke fan, why not lock him in a cage and make him play music for meals? Easy. Easy. Forget the portable tone dials, forget the tune dials and all that. Just get the real thing. Just get the real thing. I can see Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji fighting the God Knights in a few chapters. But just like how Luffy was fighting the Gorosei, they can't actually hurt them. That is when Scoffer shows up to one of them and shows off how to defeat them by using a hidden ability of Haki. I can also see Scoffer lecturing Luffy about not having all of his crew members learn how to use Haki, as Scoffer understands that Devil Fruits, techniques, and weapons can only get you so far until an enemy that is much more powerful can overcome them. And yes, I completely agree. I think Scoffer will be that character that shows them how to harm the God Knights. And I don't know if he'll have the time to show them how to do it right then and there, but I think we'll get a glimpse of it. And maybe post Elbaph, that is when he's like, hey guys, sit down. I'm gonna school y'all for a second. You know, you guys are super strong, but let me show you how to do this one extra Haki ability. I could totally see that. And I talked about it in the video, but I really love the parallel this would bring up between Scoffer and Rayleigh. Because Rayleigh, back at Sabaody, he was the only person who could actually touch Kizaru. I think Scoffer is going to be the exact same way. Granted, I think all the Straw Hats can touch the Gorosei and the God Knights, but harming them is a different story. So I do think that Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji, I want to believe in the boys, and I think that they could overpower the God Knights, but that regeneration is going to be the one thing that keeps them from winning. And with Luffy, this is even more apparent, right? Zoro and Sanji, yes, they get winded after a while, but Luffy in Gear 5th, he doesn't last super long. If Luffy's base Gear 5th with Conqueror's Haki cannot win a battle and beat regeneration, then I could totally see him running out of steam mid-fight. That happened against Kaido, that happened back on Egghead, and I wouldn't be shocked if it happened here in Elbaph, right? Luffy's laying the wallop on all the God Knights. You know, Luffy just keeps on knocking them down, they keep on regenerating, and Luffy just gets tired. You know, he doesn't have enough food in him, maybe he just doesn't have enough Gear 5th energy, and he turns into an old man, and he's gone for like a chapter or two. I mean, that's happened like, what, 3 or 4 times already? So I could see that happening here, and that is when Scoffer steps in and shows us how it's all done. But to be fair, I know a couple of people just really hated that idea, and I get it, right? Luffy running out of stamina, that is a reoccurring trope in One Piece, and it's kind of like one of those things where you love it or you hate it, but you kind of understand why Oda does it. And he's talked about it before, how he's like, oh, you know, I can't have Luffy winning every fight. You know, sometimes I have to stop Luffy, like in Dressrosa, where Luffy was fighting Bellamy for like 5 chapters. Luffy was running to Kurita Coliseum for 5 chapters. Like, that's just kind of how it goes. You gotta stall the boys or else they will just wipe the floor. Daniel says, I feel like there has to be another way around the regeneration besides advanced Conqueror's Haki. Simply because not every character who is likely to defeat the end of series God Knights will be a conqueror. There needs to be something even the mid-tier Straw Hats could learn, since advanced Conqueror's Haki is way out of their league. I 1,000,000% agree. So when it comes to advanced Conqueror's Haki, I'm not a hater of it. I like it. I think it's pretty cool, right? You're punching somebody, and then there's that space in between, black lightning shooting out. I think it's awesome. But at the same time, I'm not the biggest fan of how necessary it is for these high-tier battles. And it's because of what you said. You know, not everybody has basic Conqueror's Haki. Forget advanced Conqueror's Haki. Not everybody even has base Conqueror's Haki. And the 2 explanations we got for Conqueror's Haki is that you either are born with it, which is kind of scuffed, right? Imagine being not born with Conqueror's Haki. And then the second option is that you have ambitions of a king. And that's kind of vague, right? Like ambitions of a king, that could mean a lot of things. And there should be people who have Conqueror's Haki because they're that level of fighter, but they just don't have ambitions of a king. And it kind of sucks, right? I feel like there are a lot of people who deserve it, who don't have it. And yeah, I would love if the way around regeneration wasn't a gimmick like that per se. Instead of Conqueror's Haki, it could be something like advanced armament, because we know that regular people can get armament Haki. You can train your armament Haki, you can train observation, but as far as conquerors go, you either got it or you don't. So I agree. I hope the answer is not that. I hope it's something adjacent to it, or it could be something like Thriller Bark, right? You know, Brooke, you know, bringing back Brooke for a second, but Brooke was the only character on Thriller Bark that knew how to harm Moria's zombies. What you had to do was you had to throw salt in their mouths, and then boom, their soul leaves and they're dead. Maybe it's a gimmick like that where it's not salt, but maybe there's like a special fluid, like holy water. And once you splash holy water on them, then you can do damage. Now the regeneration is cooked for the next 24 hours. I think it has to be something like that. I'm still pretty wishy-washy with it. Maybe it has to do with sea stone. Maybe it has to do with sunstone, right? Because that's a thing here in Elbaph. But yeah, I hope it's not just gatekept by birth and by ambition. You know, I hope it's something that everybody that is strong, of course, can have access to. But that's just my opinion. You know, that's just me. That is just the humble opinion of one guy out there. This one's kind of funny. They say the fact that Gunko best most of the Straw Hats makes her have more feats than Saturn. When Saturn attacked Robin, they just easily stalled him. I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that chapter where Saturn goes up to the Labo face. He's in his Gyuki form. You know, he's enraged. His eyes are blackened out. And he sees Robin. He sees Nami, Usopp, Brooke, and all them. And he's just over here trying to stab them, and he's not really landing any blows. He doesn't get them out of his way. Like, the way that situation is diffused, if you guys remember, Saturn just says, I don't have time for this, I'm leaving, and he just runs right past them. I know that's a little bit unfair, right? But still, I agree. Gunko's portrayal so far has been miles better than Saturn. And I even talked about it, but Gunko in this chapter, when she got hit by Usopp, she saw it coming. And that is way more than what we can say for any attack Saturn got hit with. The Kuma punch, caught on the left foot. Hit by Luffy, caught on the left foot. Like, Saturn didn't see attacks coming, and he didn't have the chance to dodge any of them. Gungko did. You know, I wonder how that's going to play a role later. Like, when we learn more about the God Knights and how celestial dragons function, I wonder if the Gorosei just truly aren't the fighting force of the celestial dragons. Like, maybe they are just politicians. You know, that was the go-to a long time ago. Maybe that's the go-to now. The God Knights are the sword. The Gorosei are the brain. Something of the sort. 1023. I used to be a soldier, and I can confirm that in the real world, they do have pictures of people in the chain of command, starting with the president, and it works all the way down to your commander. So that's possibly how the Marines would know what Saint Saturn looks like. I love this a lot. I love the explanation. I love that it relates to the real world. And since Brooke, since Brooke was a part of a cavalry for his kingdom many, many years ago, maybe that's how he knows about the God Knights. Maybe his kingdom was affiliated with the WG, and because of that, boom, picture of the Gorosei, picture of the God Knights, and that is where he got that information from. Maybe he doesn't have pictures of Gungko by any means, but maybe pictures of other God Knights from the old era, right? The God Knights that would have been there at God Valley, or, the God Knights that existed even before that era. Brago is gonna have to apologize to you for the Gunko slander. He said that she'd be a Nami victim. I can't wait for the week's discussion with you two. Yeah, he did say that. Hey, I said, I thought my take was tame. People called me crazy. I said that Gunko would be at least around Katakuri level. Anything below that would be kind of crazy in my opinion, right? Especially with villains nowadays. Gunko's not even the leader, mind you. I'm not talking about Shamrock or Garling or anybody like that. I'm talking about Gunko. She's got to be Katakuri level. Yeah, I don't think that's crazy anymore. Maybe last week it was, but here we have it. Gunko's kind of showing out. No awakening, no honky yet, no nothing. And she's looking really good. I can't believe Brago said that she'd be a Nami victim. Maybe she is. Maybe in the future she is a Nami victim. But right now, Nami needs a training arc, brother. I don't know. I think a lot of the Straw Hats do, and I do like training arcs. And I love it when villains are strong, because you know what that means? That means that we're going to get power-ups, baby. We're going to get freaking power-ups. So this comment says, and this might actually be the last comment, but they say Gunko could be a Zoro fight. He can't follow directions. I like that. And plus Zoro over Sanji here, because Sanji cannot hit a woman. So if I had to pick between the two, or three if you're including Luffy, I would pick Zoro. And plus, in this chapter, we saw that Nami was trying to pull the arrow to no avail. But for Zoro, what if Zoro just simply cuts the arrow? That would be cool. Even Saul called Gunko's arrow cloth-like. Sword and cloth, my guys? Come on. Yeah, I want to see Zoro fight her. And maybe the fact that Zoro can't follow directions actually plays a role. Like, maybe Zoro gets attached to one of those arrows, and Zoro's sense of direction is so bad he just goes the opposite direction and Gunko gets caught off guard. She's like, wait, what the hell? What? Oh, and then for Zoro too. I don't think this is going to be the case, but Gunko has heterochromia eyes, where her eyes are like different colors. Maybe this is where Zoro opens his other eye, right? He opens his eye and he's also heterochromia, which wouldn't make any sense because we've seen Zoro's eyes before. But what if, you know, people are saying Zoro's got like a crazy demon anime eye, and maybe this is where he reveals it. He's like, oh, Gunko, you got 2 eyes? Well, me too. I picked it up during the time skip, which would be odd. But hey, I would not complain. But with that being said, okay, I got to wobble over here. With that being said, though, thank you guys for joining me in this comment section video. I really freaking appreciate it. Thank you guys for the comments, leaving your thoughts down below and all that good stuff. We couldn't have this video without all of you. And yeah, 11:47 is right around the corner. And I'll catch you guys then. If you have the chance, if you want to check me out on the side, I do have an anime reaction channel where I react to One Piece weekly. I also react to random animes that air in the season as well. Anything I just kind of like, I throw on that channel. And also, I have another channel called Syvduck where I post gameplay videos, and I also stream at Syvduck over on Twitch every other day, late at night. So feel free to check out those side channels if you don't mind, or if you want to. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll catch y'all later. Take care, brothers, and peace out.